Hello, this wardrobe is now finished. Let's take a journey back in time to see exactly what went into making this wardrobe.
So once the initial design was made, I went to B&Q to collect the pieces of plywood that I needed, and I got them cut down to size with a few bits to spare. Once the pieces were all in my shed, it was now time to get to work. I didn't want to spend a long time measuring and drilling each hole, so I made myself a little template, a little jig, just to make sure all the drills that I did hole were accurate. Then it was just a case of using some double-sided tape just to connect the piece while it allowed me to drill all the holes. And after that was done, it was a case of countersinking all of the holes so the screw head can fit nicely into each piece. Then came the fun part of creating a little slot, little recess for the shelves to fit into. This meant that I had to use the router and had multiple passes to go 6mm deep into each of the side pieces, and this was actually a lot of fun to do. I did have to work outside, space was a bit limited inside the shed, so I had to make do. But it was a lovely sunny day, which makes a change since in the UK it does always rain. I did use the spare bit of plywood I had just to give me a straight edge, just to make sure when I did router out the space for the shelves to go into, it would have been a straight line. The last thing you want is some wonky shelves. Always take your time when you're doing anything with a router. It can be a dangerous tool, so you do want to make sure you are safe when you're doing it, and always wear eye protection just because sawdust does go flying around quite a lot. You can see here just how much sawdust can be created when you are doing anything with a router. So yeah, it's always good to have some goggles on just to protect your eyes. Also, for some reason in this video, it seems like I've got a tiny set of legs. It does seem like I look like I skip leg day, but trust me, that is not the case. When I start my leg workout, I just make sure I only do one set. Then came the task of marking out exactly where the dowel will go to hang the clothes from. I just used a compass to do this and use the radius that I needed. And then it was a case of just routering out this little section. I could have used the drill, but I didn't actually have a drill bit that was the correct width to be able to do this. So I made do with the router, just little freehand work, and it did turn out quite well. So after a good day's worth of work, I moved everything back into the shed and just sort of did a mock assembly to make sure everything seemed to fit together, and it did. So I was quite happy with what I accomplished today. Then on the next day, it came to actually putting it together. So I made sure everything was nice and flat and even, and then I started to put the screws in to connect all the side pieces together. I then put the shelves in place and they were able to slot in quite nicely. And at this point, I was running out of storage space on my phone, so I had to make do with just some photos before I was able to free up a bit more space. And once I put it together, this is how it was looking. Everything looked quite well. Everything was at a nice right angle, and I was very happy with the work so far. So I moved it back into the shed, and this is where it would stay for the rest of its life. Now, this is a fun story. I originally planned to have doors that would open on hinges, but when I when I got the material, they didn't actually have the thickness that I needed. So the hinges that I bought, the screws were way too long and they would have just gone straight through the door because of the length of the screws. So what I did is I decided to have sliding doors, and here I'm just creating 6 different pieces that will keep the doors in place to allow them to slide. And this was just a quick mock-up that I did to make sure the lengths were good and everything seemed to fit quite well. Then I started to create the handles on the doors. I just needed to router out a section just big enough to allow my hand to go through to slide them open. This again was done freehand. I wasn't too fussed about exactly having a clean right angle edge, so freehand was good enough, and then it was just a case of sanding and polishing it up so I don't get any nasty splinters. Before I actually attached the pieces to the top and bottom of the wardrobe, I just wanted to do a mock test to make sure the doors would slide, and this is what I'm doing here. They did slide, they were a bit tight, but once the sanding was done, and when gravity was not working against me, they would slide very easily. Now the fun part of any woodworking project is the sanding. I did a bit of sanding, got rid of all the pencil lines, just made sure there were no rough edges, and then I continued to the next part of the project. And that next part is actually fixing those side pieces to allow the doors to slide. Again, just some simple drill holes, all countersunk underneath, and then just screwing each piece into place. This was pretty simple to do. There were no unexpected problems, so I was quite happy with the way it turned out. For the sanding, I went up from 40 grit to 80 grit, then to 120, then to 240, then to 320, and then finally to 600 grit. This was the moment of truth to really see if the doors would actually slide once the side pieces were actually drilled and connected with screws to the top and bottom. They did slide, so I was very happy, but this was a heart-in-mouth moment just in case they didn't. Then it was back to a bit more sanding. For large projects, I do like to break up the sanding just so I don't get tired. And yeah, my tripod did fall and I didn't even realise. Then I applied one coat of the gloss varnish that I was using, and I was very happy with the way it was looking.
Hello, I've just put the finish on some of these sides. I just need to change the position. I need to finish the underside and the other side of that top bit. Do 2 coats there, and then that's pretty much done. The doors have had 2 coats, everything on this side's had 2 coats. I could always reapply touch up if necessary, but for now I think we're in a good position. Might do 3 coats for the doors, 3 coats on the top of the shelf. Not necessary though. I don't think I've got enough finish left either, but let's see how much we have when we go for 2 here. So when you move something on your own that is much bigger than you are, it's very tricky, so I don't want to damage this. But I know how well I've made this, and I know it's strong, so let's go ahead. Yes, so let's first that's a crap right there. Ow. Should now just be able to tilt it. Ah. How am I so tight? What makes it tight really? Something fell, I'm not quite sure what. bit more, I think. Or you. There we go. Now we slide it to me. Now I'm just going to lift it straight up. Working out is essential if you do good work, because my gosh, it is very difficult otherwise. I hope you enjoyed that. This is also after I just hit chest, tricep, shoulders, so I've got a bit of a pump going, but no, it was very tricky.
Now, if you're still around after that whole debacle, I do applaud you. Then it was just a case of putting the final coat on and everything was pretty much done. Now this is the space the wardrobe should hopefully fit into. I am hoping for the best and I hope my measurements were accurate. So I took apart the wardrobe, moved everything into the kitchen and then moved everything upstairs to my bedroom. Now, one scary thing was when I applied the gloss varnish, it actually glued the pieces together, so when I took all the screws out, I couldn't take it apart. In the future, make sure you don't do this, because it could have ruined the whole project. Once that was done and everything was apart, I reassembled everything in my bedroom as I am doing here. This didn't take too long, everything was already pre-drilled, so it was just a case of simple assembly. I did, however, start assembling it the wrong way round, so I did have to spin everything round, taking off half the wall in the process. So everything's looking pretty good and I was very happy with the way things were looking and the assembly was going according to plan. Now came the fun task of actually putting the wardrobe in place. This was not as easy as I thought because it was a bit of a tight squeeze, but I did eventually manage to get the correct angle to tilt the whole wardrobe up and slide it into place. Another sad thing about this project was when I was actually sanding my old palm sander, the motor blew, so I did have to get a replacement one. I had the old sander for about 6 years, so I was very sad to see it go. I was very happy the wardrobe did fit in, and I was very happy that my measurements were correct. Also, I am very glad that I didn't end up breaking it when I was trying to take it apart because everything did glue together. But yeah, here's the final images. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. This is the largest project I've made so far, and I'm excited to see what future projects I will build. I hope you enjoyed watching this wardrobe build from start to finish. If you did, please like, share and subscribe if you do want to see more future content.